Okay, so I'm Kari Stiles from the Puget Sound Partnership, and let me get my presentation up. Before I launch into how we use Miradi Share, I think I need to provide a little bit of information on who we are and what we do, because it'll make a little bit more sense. So I'm the Adaptive Systems Manager at the Puget Sound Partnership. That's a new position and a new team we're very excited about as of last week. So we are way up here in the northwest corner of the United States. It's the Puget Sound estuary and all of the contributing watershed. That's what we focus on at the Puget Sound Partnership. We're part of the EPA's National Estuary Program, but we are actually a state agency, just like Department of Ecology or Department of Natural Resources. The Puget Sound Partnership is a state agency. Zooming a little bit in on to show you what the Puget Sound is like. We're a pretty large area. We have an international border with Canada. We span 12 different counties, over 100 cities, over 20 very active tribes, and we have a really vibrant both forestry industry, agricultural industry, marine industries, and we have big booming cities that are really international hubs like Seattle. So a big diverse people landscape. And the natural landscape, we go all the way from 14,000-foot volcanoes with glaciated terrain down through 16 major river valleys, through conifer and conifer forests, oak woodlands, to thousands of feet of shoreline and multiple marine protected areas. We also have a number of threatened and endangered species, including orca, the killer whale, and a number of species of salmon. So really diverse landscape that we work in with hundreds of partners. And what we like to say at the Puget Sound Partnership is that we work on everything from the snow caps to the white caps with a bit of a focus on the watery bits. And when we were set up as a state agency in 2007, we were given the challenge of coordinating and leading the effort to restore and protect Puget Sound by 2020. But we were given basically no carrots, meaning we have almost no money to distribute to our partners. And we have no sticks, meaning we have no regulatory authority. So what we really have in our toolbox is the need to make this useful and easy for people. So we need to help people do the right thing to recover Puget Sound. And that's where the open standards and Miradi Share really come in. So before I go into that, just a little bit about the scale of projects in Puget Sound recovery. So we really have three scales that we work at. The smallest scale is the salmon recovery watersheds. So these colored watersheds, all these colors on this map, show the 16 different watersheds and the nearshore and marine area that we work on. So that's one project unit for us, these salmon recovery watersheds. We then have a slightly larger scale, which is called the action area scale. And these are outlined with the thick blue outline. So you can see that there's anywhere from 1 to 3 different watersheds, anywhere from 1 to 3 different counties within an action area. Those are managed by what we call LIOs, or local integrating organizations. And unlike the salmon recovery watersheds, these areas really focus on comprehensive ecosystem recovery planning. So everything: species, habitat, water quality, water quantity, and human well-being. So this action area is really the intermediate scale. And then we also work, of course, at the entire Puget Sound wide scale. So we have a number of projects that really cover the entire Puget Sound. So you can imagine our biggest challenge is coordinating all of these efforts that all of our amazing partners are doing. So we're coordinating hundreds of partners across all of these multiple scales, and they all have slightly different priorities. So this is where open standards and Miradi come in. We adopted the open standards in 2009, and we're really using the open standards and Miradi to help us identify common goals, coordinate and accelerate collective action, and develop shared measures that allow us to track progress toward goals and adaptively manage our actions. And specifically with Miradi Share, it's really helping us do a few things over the past couple of years and really improving our ability to speak a common language. So using taxonomies, we're building a common language throughout Puget Sound. Again, using the taxonomies and what I'll show you, prototype files, we're increasing our ability to share and learn across these different geographies and partners. And then using Miradi Share, we're able to aggregate or compile information across these different projects using taxonomies and custom reports. That's my cue to shift to Miradi Share, and hopefully it works. There we go. So I'm logged in. Thanks, Dan, for the great introduction. I don't have to do a lot of basics. So I'm logged into my account, which gives me access to all of the Puget Sound files. This is our home page with our adaptive cycle and our vital signs, or our targets that we focus on. And the first thing I'm going to introduce you to is the taxonomies that we use, or the program-wide template that we use. We use 9 different, if I click on this, yes, there you can see, we use 9 different Puget Sound specific taxonomies to organize our information. So these go, we've built off of the global or the standard taxonomies to develop some that are more specific to our Puget Sound needs and really resonate with our partners. So I'll just show you 2 examples here, and then I'll show you how we use them, these taxonomies across the different projects to really aggregate and compile information. So we have a Puget Sound specific direct threat taxonomy. In 2009, we called it a threat taxonomy. We got a lot of pushback from a number of partners saying they didn't want us calling agriculture or fisheries or forestry a threat. So we heard that, and we now call it our pressure taxonomy. So it's a list of sources of pressure that's very similar to the global taxonomy, the IUCN threat taxonomy, but we've modified it a bit to be more relevant to the Puget Sound area. So if you're familiar with the IUCN threat taxonomy, this will look very similar to you. So we ask all our partners using Miradi to tag any information related to threats to these pressure sources, so we know what they're talking about and they can share information across their projects. Another way that we've been using the taxonomy or template tool within Miradi Share is to develop a really simple, really rating scale. So we call this our priority taxonomy. And we just had, it's just, you'll notice just very high, medium, and low. It has no descriptions. It just gives those 4 ratings. And we've applied this priority taxonomy to a number of different elements within Miradi. And the way that we're using this is with our local partners who are just beginning to develop their ecosystem recovery plans. They often don't have the time or the resources or the expertise to do very rigorous threat ratings or strategy prioritizations right from the beginning. They're sort of translating existing plans into Miradi. And so this allows them to tag various elements at the appropriate priority level based on their previous plans. So what this allows us to do at the Puget Sound scale is quickly look through all of our local project files, our local partners files, and pull out their highest priority elements right away to get a sense of what are common priorities across the region and what are unique to each geography. So that's 2 examples. And then also just because I'm going to use that example in a minute, we use the biophysical factor element in Miradi for our the second level of our pressure taxonomy, which is stressors. So these are the biophysical results of the pressure sources. So for example, development is one source of conversion of land cover, and that's down here, one of the stressors in our taxonomy. So we ask all of our partners to use this stressor taxonomy also when they're developing their project files. So that's how we're using taxonomies. I'll show you in just a minute how we're using them to compile information, but I also wanted to bring up the use of prototype files. So this is similar to what David from Environment Incentives introduced earlier. We develop prototype files. For example, I'm not going to show you because we don't have time, but in the prototype results chain file, we have example results chains, very simple results chains for all of our sub-strategies, all 70 of our sub-strategies that we use in the Puget Sound region. And we have asked our partners to start with those and then tell us where they do or don't align with their theories of change. So it's really been a way to both jumpstart their development of results chains and start encouraging them to use a logic model approach to describing their assumptions about recovery, but also it's allowed us to really crowdsource a lot of information from our hundreds of partners about what they're doing to recover the ecosystem in their area. I'm just going to do a quick time check here. I think I'm good. I'll show you one example of one of the prototypes, and it'll look a little scary, but it's been useful for a lot of people. So for example, this first massive diagram here is all of our pressure sources linked to all of our stressors. And these linkages were done, the sources that are contributing to the stressors were done by a set of scientists in the region who identified those relationships and their relevance at the Puget Sound scale. We break them out also into simpler models based on these high-level source categories. And so what our partners can do is download this project file and copy and paste these pressure network diagrams, is what we call them, the link between these direct threats and their stressors, and use that to start their conceptual models. So they don't have to start from scratch. They can start from these regionally relevant relationships and really modify and customize them to make them relevant to their local area. And they found that that has been really useful. So those are the prototype files. And then I want to just show you how we use the taxonomies that we've developed to support compilation or aggregation of information across different projects. So I've just gone into our project list and I've filtered all of the projects in the Puget Sound Recovery Program to show just those projects related to the action areas, or those projects managed by the LIOs, the local integrating organizations. So we have 9 separate projects. We also have some old archive projects and some prototypes in here, but each LIO is developing their own ecosystem recovery plan. So they've got conceptual models and results chains that they're starting on, and they're tagging everything to those taxonomies I mentioned earlier. So what I'm now able to do at the Puget Sound scale, rather than having to go in and export information from each of these projects, I can go in and use the custom report tool, just as one of the reports that, report tools that Dan was showing earlier. And you can see we have 43 custom reports we're working with here. I use these all the time, and our partners and staff use them. I've created a couple demos for this presentation. But for example, what I can do is look across all the LIOs to see which LIOs or which local areas are focusing on different vital signs. So in our lingo, vital signs are the same as targets, or those parts of the ecosystem that they're focusing on. So I can pull up a table and I can expand this to all of the vital signs that the local areas are focusing on. And I can see in the left what the locals have called it. So they're focusing on transparent government, which is one of our vital signs, swimming beaches, summer stream flows, summer flows, sound stewardship, etc. So I can see all the vital signs that the LIOs are focusing on. But using the taxonomy over here on the right, I can begin searching for exactly which local areas have identified one of our regional vital signs as something that's of interest or of high priority in their local area. So for example, 5 of our 9 LIOs have said that estuaries are a high priority, high recovery priority in their area. And I can see what they choose to call them over here on the left, because they have slightly different focus in each of the areas depending on what their landscape looks like. Let's see, another one, I can see who's focusing on Pacific herring really quickly, and then I can look at what actions they're working on. So as another example, I can do the same thing with the pressure taxonomy. So I can pull up all of the LIOs that are working on different pressures, and I'm just going to sort by the count of projects with a certain direct threat or pressure. And what you can see here by this number is that 6 LIOs out of 9 have identified housing in urban areas, or that sort of development, as a priority pressure in their area. And this group of LIOs have identified it as a very high priority pressure. I can then look across and see how that compares to the standard classification, and I can see also the specific name that this local area has given the pressure. So that's pretty much the end of my presentation. Basically, I just wanted to show you that by using Miradi Share, we're able to compile a lot of information from a lot of local partners with very different ways of speaking about things and very different priorities into one place, so we can start to better integrate the local priority information into our sound-wide recovery plans, which is very important for us and has been very challenging in the past.
Kari?
Yep.
This is Damon. We do have a question from Jed Wright. He wants to know, can we access the pressure strategies, and can you share them?
You can access not pressure strategies, but you can access our pressure network diagram. So if you go up to, as Dan was just showing, I just filtered this for projects. And yes, our pressure network diagrams are publicly available. So this may take a while. Short answer, yes. So if you search for pressure, what you'll see, here's the Puget Sound pressure prototypes, it's public. So you can pull up those source stressor network diagrams if you want to. Download them and use them all you want.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions?
Looks like there's one more that just came in. It's from Charles. He asks, I would be interested to learn more about how to build organization-specific reports and how flexible those queries can be.
Yes, and I think that is a great topic for a future Miradi User Group session. And I would also direct you guys all to watch, or I suggest you watch Annette's presentation that's coming up in the second session on how they use Miradi Share for their organizational work. We haven't yet gotten to very much sophisticated reporting or common progress tracking using Miradi Share. We have some other systems that we're required as a state agency and receiving federal money. We have to report in some other formats, so we currently use those. But we are planning on moving toward using Miradi Share to better track and report on the progress. And I expect that Annette will present on some of that tomorrow or in the later session, since Bush Heritage does a great job using Miradi Share for reporting and tracking.